Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk podcast. This is United Show. This is Devil's Advocate. And Jesus, Mother, God, Christ, whatever adjective you want to use, this is the big one. This is the FA Cup final. It is the Manchester Derby. Lot to discuss here tonight in terms of the biggest game in Manchester United season and probably the biggest game in a long, long time in terms of our football club. Bigger than the Carabao Cup final, bigger than many games we've had recently. So look, I've a great panel of guests coming on this evening. To the right of me, a former Manchester United striker, Phil Marsh. Below me, I have United Wesley, and also Phil Brown will be joining us in a couple of minutes as well. So look, guys, do smash and like the video, do subscribe, and look, we do appreciate your support. But gonna kick it off straight away with yourself, Phil. Obviously, it's been a great season. In terms of where we've been after the first two games, the Brentford and Brighton game, we came back from I suppose a terrible time and went on a good run, and we consequently went on to win the Carabao Cup. Now we were in another cup final in the FA Cup. And Justin, yourself, obviously, from what you've seen all season, and obviously now we're coming up in a derby in the FA Cup final. How are you feeling going into tomorrow's game? Is it excitement? Is it, is there, so I suppose, nerves? Like, Joe, how are you feeling right now? Obviously, being in your position where you were at the club.
Yeah, excited, mate. I think every time you reach a final and every time you're competing for a trophy, there's always the excitement around it. I think, as you just touched on there from the start of the season, losing them first two games to be, at the end of the season with a trophy in the bag. We've finished top four, and obviously the FA Cup still to come. It's been a magnificent season overall. I think for us now, we've sort of, achieved really what we wanted to achieve in terms of the top four, which was the biggest one for us. A trophy was great to get in the bag, and now we've obviously got the FA Cup, which for me, in a weird way, I think it's sort of, like a bit of a free hit, I think, for us, because we've sort of overachieved really in such a short space of time with where the squad was. Obviously a new manager, we're a little bit ahead of schedule. So for me, I think, all the pressure's on City. We're just going into the game, quietly go about our business, and I'm quietly confident that we can get a result. I think we finished the season really well, bar a couple of games. We had a little bit of a blip against Brighton and West Ham, but with the injuries and suspensions that come into play as well in the schedule, I think overall we've had a fantastic season, and to finish the season the way we did in the league was great. To not just stumble over the line and finish in the top four. We won them two games at the end of the season there with a bit of style. And yeah, as I said, I'm quietly confident going into the game. I think, as I said, City's got a lot of pressure going into that game, with the talk of the treble. There is no real pressure on us. And I think, if we can turn up and put in a performance like we've shown against Man City already this season, then I've no doubt that we can get a result.
Yeah, without doubt. Look, there's always a chance, especially when this football club is involved, going to Wembley. It's a big game, big occasion, and look, we have seen in the past. We have, even when we've been underdogs in certain situations, we have rose to the occasion. Phil Brown, from yourself, from your perspective, covering United this season. Obviously, there's been a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but obviously Erik Ten Hag has brought us on the verge of win a domestic double, and like yourself, there's been a lot of problems with the ownership. The transfers came in late. We didn't get De Jong. When you look at this game right now, do you think, let's say if Erik Ten Hag does go on and win this game tomorrow, that he would be our best manager post Sir Alex?
I think you have to factor in what Ten Hag inherited. Where he finished the race depends on where he started it. And United were a total mess, a completely broken football club. Probably had the worst quality squad of any manager, and I include Moyes in that, in the last 10 years. Because it wasn't just about ability, it was about the fact that United completely surrendered the last 3-4 months of last season. Nobody had any interest in playing for the football club. The atmosphere inside the football club was a mess. There was massive transition going on above Ten Hag with Richard Arnold and other people being moved into key positions. So I think when you factor in that he had to deal with the Ronaldo situation, which he dealt with perfectly, his response to Brentford, which he dealt with perfectly, the fact that up until Brentford, he'd been given 3 signings, which were Lissandro Martinez at 55 million, which is average for a centre back in the Premier League. Terrell Malacia at 12 million, which is not beyond the reach of any Premier League club, and Christian Eriksen on a free transfer. United, instead of executing a well thought out strategy and plan, reacted to Brentford, gave him Casemiro and Anthony late in the window, and he significantly improved United. So he really hasn't even had a proper window that's been executed per his plans. Because of course January he wasn't given anything either. United are the only club that didn't spend in January that qualified for Europe, which is truly remarkable. So when you think of all the things he's had to deal with, I think he dealt with the Harry Maguire situation perfectly. He started him out as captain, starting centre back, sure position to lose, and he did lose it. Gave Ronaldo the captain's armband. 2 weeks later, Ronaldo's doing an interview on TV saying he was not being picked and not being treated fairly. I really can't find fault. This guy got United. You go back to January, lads. United won a title race in January. He should have been given players then. He's got United into 3rd position in the league. United, the only team outside the city that will win a trophy in England, with a striker that hasn't scored a goal in the Premier League, one that doesn't have a body that stands up to the rigors of professional football. He's done this with 1 goal scorer, and he was injured for the last 2 months essentially. I mean, it's just an unbelievable accomplishment.
Yeah, 100%. I think the fact that he's done it without a traditional number 9 for the majority of the season, and like, look, like you said, Rashford been out for 2 months. I think Garnacho being out was a massive miss as well in terms of, if you look his goals, assist ratio, like he more or less has a goal involvement nearly every other game he plays. So I think he's had tough times with injuries, and the fact he's got 3rd in a trophy and potentially another one on the way, like he's done well. Look, obviously, like Phil, Wes, Phil as well, like if the ownership does get sorted out and he does get proper backing and there's a proper structure, I do believe we have a great manager there to take us forward. In the future, 100%. Wes, I'm going to come to you just on obviously our forward line, because Martial is injured. Weghorst, obviously, great, brilliant work rate, and he put a shift in, and we do appreciate that. What way, when you look at Erik Ten Hag tomorrow, do you think he goes with? What type of structure do you think he goes up front? Do you think, does he maybe take Fernandes out of the midfield? Do you think maybe we go a bit more pragmatic, and do we maybe try go a bit tighter in midfield tomorrow? Because I think Martial's injury in terms of the shape is probably after throwing it up in the air a bit.
Yeah, I think obviously I think the manager's going to have a plan. That the team would have worked on something all week in training. They probably already know who's playing and who's not. But personally, I think we've it's a cup final. I'd like to see us take the game to City. We're obviously not going to match City for possession in the game. But personally, I'd probably try and go as near as possible to the team that played City at home. If we go back to that game, I think that if you rewatch it from the very start to the end, I think Manchester United was certainly the better team throughout the game. City obviously had 1 or 2 players missing from their team. However, you've got the likes of Fred. I would not be surprised if Fred does play tomorrow. Personally, I hope Fred does play, because I think he brings that energy into midfield and tends to really play well against Manchester City in particular. But yeah, I think that ultimately, with the greatest respect to Weghorst, obviously you can't fault his efforts in coming to the club and giving it a go. And yeah, he's on massive amounts of money as well. But I think tomorrow you've really got to be clinical, because you might only get one chance in this game, and you need a goal scorer. And unfortunately, our goal scorer, but fortunately, we've only got one, and that's Rashford. And I think tomorrow, like you touched upon then, Keane, potentially moving Bruno back out to the right, playing Rashford down the middle, and then pretty much take your pick. It's probably going to be Sancho to move into midfield to replace Bruno, given the injury that we do have at the moment. But I'd really like to see us give it a go and try and, be not too rash, but conservative in our play. We're not going to match City for possession, but I really want us to see us give it a go, because I think if we do stand off City and show too much respect, regardless of who does play for City, they will punish you. So, yeah.
Yeah, they're a tough. It's a tough team to come up against. Looking, like you said, they've multiple players in multiple positions where, like, even if, let's say, De Bruyne dropped out, they've Bernardo Silva, or let's say if Grealish dropped out, you have Foden. So you've kind of similar type of players come in and make a difference. Phil, I want to come to you just on a point. Phil Marsh, I want to come to you just on a point that Wes mentioned in terms of the striker. Obviously, you're a striker yourself. When you look at our forward options tomorrow, especially up front, what would you be looking for tomorrow when you look at the way City play in terms of their high line, high possession game, and the way they kind of squeeze you up the pitch? What would you be looking for tomorrow?
Yeah. I remember watching. Sorry, man, go ahead.
Was it me? Sorry, you wanted
it's you, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I think it depends really on what kind of way he wants to go about it. For me, I think I agree with Wes there. I think tomorrow we need to try and start the game fast and take the game to City. For me, the usual way he goes about it is obviously he uses Sancho and then he brings Garnacho on as the impact later on in the game. I think personally for me tomorrow, I'd like to see Garnacho start and be a bit more of an outlet for us. And someone who we maybe could cheat a little bit and sort of, we can get the ball to him, because we know he likes to travel with the ball and carry it. And I think he's one who will, when he's 1v1, he'll get to the bar line and he doesn't, shirk, trying to take somebody on and create something. I think we'll definitely need that tomorrow. So for me, I think what he probably will do is, as we've touched on there, I think Fred was a massive inclusion last time when we played him, and I think he did a great job against De Bruyne. I think that'll probably be a similar tactic that we go with tomorrow. And obviously Bruno was playing off the right and playing a little bit more narrow just to bolster that midfield. That would be the way I would start. I mean, whether he does that or whether he starts with Sancho and tries to be a little bit more defensive and looks to bring Garnacho on later on in the game as an impact player off the bench. But for me, I think last time when we played in that way, I think it was really good, and for me that would be the way to go. Although I do think he will start with Sancho personally and bring Garnacho on. I would go the other way.
Yeah, I think from maybe a ball retention standpoint, you're probably looking at Sancho maybe as a player who could hold up the ball a bit, maybe bring Luke Shaw into play in terms of overlaps and underlaps, and maybe from that point of view. But I completely get you, Phil. In terms of stretching Man City, pinning Kyle Walker back, I think Garnacho would be the one. I remember being at the derby in the last 20 minutes and Garnacho came on. He terrorized City, and he really made a difference when he came on. You seen kind of them drop a couple of yards because Garnacho was carrying the ball and he was taking them on, and he done very well. So it depends what way Ten Hag wants to go. I do agree. I think he probably will go Sancho from the start, but it depends what way he wants to go. If the game's still 0-0 or 1-0 down with 20 minutes to go, does he bring on that ace in the hole when the game's a bit more stretched? Tomorrow's going to be about 30 degrees in London. It's going to be roasting. There's different factors, there. So, it depends what way tactically Ten Hag wants to go. But I dare to say, look, he's a very tactically astute manager. He will have a plan. Hopefully that plan can come to fruition and come off and do well. Phil Brown, there's been a lot of talk. I'm gonna have to say both your surnames. It's just the way I'm not gonna get.
Yeah. Sorry, because I can't see the names because it's too far away. Sorry.
I'm gonna have to say surnames. It's the best way to do it. But obviously, there's been a lot of talks about treble this, treble that.
Yeah.
Obviously, look, the way we won the treble was one of the greatest stories in football history. Obviously, we won it with 14 academy graduates in our team. A lot of the class of '92 were in there, and look, it's that treble in terms of the level of opposition and the way we won that treble speaks for itself. A lot of mainstream media are trying to almost play down this treble, and almost before City have even won it, they're trying to say that this City team is better than the '99 team. This disrespect, it's baffling to me. What do you think?
there's absolutely nothing analogous about what City are doing and what United did. First of all, City are playing a team in the Champions League final that have had to take FFP in mind and how they've built their team over the last 4 years to comply. City just ignored it and just said, well, we're going to cherry pick the rules that we like, and the ones that we don't like, we're going to say aren't fair. So you can't talk about City in the same. I mean, as much as I hate Liverpool, I would have a hard time saying that the trophies they won weren't down to merit. It was sport and merit that won those trophies, which is absolutely 100% correct. But not with City. And the problem is with City, their own fans have an internal dialogue that satisfies them that this isn't cheating, but nobody outside of a City fan believes it. And they have no respect amongst the football community. They're not ever going to be remembered in the same way that United were, or the great Liverpool teams were, or the Forest teams were. This is a team that has a huge asterisk beside them, a team that's facing 115 Premier League charges. And these are not victimless crimes. If you take a look at Glasgow Rangers hid payments to players, which, okay, they ended up getting litigated on the tax issue, but it was cheating because they conceded payments to players when their main rivals were compliant. And it, of course, calls everything into question that you accomplish, because it's not a level playing field. So whenever you can hide payments to players in the Cayman Islands, this is what makes the whole net spend argument ridiculous. We don't know what City's net spend is. I'm not even sure the UEFA knows that, because most of it got hidden. So, when everyone else is operating on different principles, of sustainability, and have to make decisions every year based on those principles. I mean, we know what City were like pre-Abu Dhabi. We know what Newcastle were like pre-Saudis. United and Arsenal are the only teams to finish above a sports washing project in the Premier League. That's a major concern. So whatever City accomplish will not be an organic accomplishment through the development of disciplines and values of the club, through development of young players, through buying players and developing them. Let's be honest, if Abu Dhabi had bought Leyton Orient, they'd be in exactly the same position that Manchester City are in, because it's 100% down to their money. And this is, of course, why City fans won't criticise their owners, because they know that without them, none of this is possible. The difference between United and City is we have the opposite problem. We criticise our owners because so much is possible without them. What I don't understand about them, support your football club, fine, but how you can go on social media and defend people that would throw your daughter in prison for breaking decency laws because they buy good footballers is truly beyond the pale to me. So whatever City do will have nothing, will not bear anything in relation to United or any of the great teams in the past. Because, I had Jonathan Johnson on my podcast, who's a CBS journalist in Paris, and we were talking about the PSG protests. And he was saying that a lot of PSG fans pine for pre-Qatari ownership because of the authenticity factor, because they feel that the club has been hollowed out. That's exactly what happened with City. And it's different for PSG because they don't have cross-town rivals that have been shoved in their face. City have had that with United. I understand why they, of course, celebrate their success. But guys, let's be honest. I watched City against Sheffield United in a half-empty stadium in the FA Cup semi-final. And when City scored, Marsh scored that penalty, I've never seen anything so lifeless. I've seen a bigger celebration at a funeral. And I'm going, they won't admit this to you or me, but deep down inside, this doesn't feel like it should. And so that, for me, will always taint everything that City do. I mean, are you telling me that Kevin De Bruyne would be at Man City if Abu Dhabi wasn't? I mean, so to me, it's ridiculous of people to turn around and say Pep Guardiola could win his third European Cup. Well, Pep Guardiola is yet to win a European Cup with a team and hasn't been accused of cheating. That's a big problem, right? Pep Guardiola won 2 European Cups with a team that's under investigation for cheating, and he could possibly win another one with a team that's under investigation for cheating. A player that himself, when he played himself, was banned for cheating, got a suspended prison sentence, has an undeniable propensity to racism, with some of his despicable comments in the past. For all that to be airbrushed out and to talk about City as the greatest ever. I mean, we heard this nonsense with Liverpool City chasing the league. United have just finished above Liverpool for the third time in 5 years. Yet a year ago, we were being told they were the best 2 teams ever. It's just ridiculously insulting. And nothing about their success is analogous to anything that's happened at Manchester United. United won a European Cup 10 years after their team died on a runway. City haven't been able to buy one in 14 years. There's nothing that's commensurate between City and United. Nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And it's just the way they just blatantly, I think what they try to do is just blatantly disregard anything Sir Alex done, anything Sir Matt Busby done. And like when they're looking at like when they're comparing which team is better, and you're like, but they haven't, number one, they haven't won it yet. Number two, again, like you said, they've 115 or whatever how many FFP charges. And like, let's say they're found guilty. What happens then? Let's say if even not all 115 are probably going to be guilty, right? There's something's probably going to give, and there's going to be a couple of charges in there that are going to be found guilty. That asterisk is always going to be there.
If they weren't guilty, if they had the mountain of exculpatory evidence that they claimed they had, they would certainly not be concerned that opposing legal counsel supports Arsenal, because it would be completely irrelevant. They also wouldn't be dragging it out. They want an immediate hearing. They exculpate themselves. There's a reason why they're not doing that. There's a reason why they didn't comply with the FFP investigation. We know that they're guilty, right?
Yeah.
Whether it meets a legal standard or not is different. The City Football Group is a serious problem for football, right? And this is really a major indictment on football governance to allow this bullshit to happen, because I don't want to see United in a similar situation where they're financially doped to the eyeballs. It doesn't need to happen. And this is not going to end well. And football doesn't belong to 2 or 3 clubs. Other clubs are being cannibalized over this. And, I don't want to see football being dominated by a couple of nation states, and that's exactly what's going to happen. And for the Premier League to allow this to be dragged out, I mean, you look at Serie A. How long did it take Juventus to face punishment? Twice with Calciopoli and the recent. It happened quickly. Say what you want about them, but they dealt with it quickly. For this to be dragged out for the next 4 years, by that stage, no one will care.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, there's no accountability held at that point. But Wes, I'm going to come to you just obviously on a United potentially winning domestic double, because when you look at our cup runs this season, obviously we've done Thursday, Sunday, back to back since even pre and post World Cup. We've been playing 2 games a week all season. When you look at like the last 2 to 3, I suppose maybe the last 6 weeks, the schedule is kind of lessened, and it seems like we're starting to pick up a bit of form again. Do you think having like in the last couple of weeks, having a week's rest may actually help United this weekend, considering when you look at the big games such as Seville, where I think we looked just absolutely knackered. Brighton away and West Ham away, where we've been just knackered. Do you think these last couple of weeks, having the week off, could actually help us, going forward on tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so. I think the managers handled it quite well as well. Post the defeat, I think it was against West Ham, where we had an additional 2 days off. I think it was a good decision by the manager to allow the players to have a bit of extra time off because, they're human beings at the end of the day, regardless of how much money they're paid. We've been playing 3 games a week since December. It is going to catch up. Our squad is wafer thin with quality. We know that. If you look deeper than our starting 11, our squad is probably average. You wouldn't probably get many top Premier League teams queuing up to take players off our bench. So I think it's important that the key players in the 11 have had that additional rest. And I do think that will help us in order to perform tomorrow, particularly in the heat as well. It's meant to be a really hot day in London tomorrow. So I think, it will enable us to play at a decent intensity. Obviously, we're going to have to be conservative. I do want us to try and take the game to City, of course. But we've also got to be careful that, A, we don't pick up any injuries in the game early on. And B, we don't tire ourselves out because obviously this game could go the whole way. It could go to 120 minutes. And we're still going to need our top quality players, within extra time as well, because as I said, players coming off the bench with the greatest respect, I've nothing but respect for the players who play for Manchester United, whether they start as on the bench, or whatnot. The quality coming on doesn't reflect on the quality that starts, and you can see that as soon as we start to make changes, the intensity levels drop within the team and the quality does dip. So that, I feel that we're going to be fresh. I think the players are going to be up for it. And I think the manager's going to have us well drilled and fresh for the game. So I'm hoping that we can show that intensity and play at a good tempo tomorrow and hopefully, come away with a good result.
Yeah, I think having a week off would help us, and definitely at time the training ground, Wes, I think, like you said, I think could be so valuable to helping us, especially with our shape. And I hope we're aggressive tomorrow, but obviously, like you said, hopefully we're not overly aggressive. Like, we know how the referees, they see Casemiro throw in one tackle and then the card comes out. So, look, hopefully that's not the case tomorrow. Mr. Marsh, you've played in derbies. You've played in derbies, and they're obviously it is a fierce fixture. Talk to us about your experience in derbies and who's kind of your toughest opponents you've come up against in Manchester derbies before.
Yeah, I think obviously the derby games are always that extra special, with the sort of rivalry, and the clubs obviously both want to win to sort of have the bragging rights, if you like. But I think obviously back then, I think football has obviously changed a little bit from when I was at the club and to what the game is like now. I think obviously the passion and sort of, all that kind of stuff has sort of filtered away from the game a little bit, especially with the characters that I had and the characters that we had at the club. Back when I was there, your Roy Keanes and stuff, that the invaluable players, people just who play for the club, they give everything, they put the bodies on the line every single week. But the passion's still there to sort of win no matter what at all costs. For me personally, funny enough, I used to have a lot of good battles with Micah Richards. Like, Micah Richards was sort of the player I used to always play against in the Man City derby. So yeah, we had a couple of good games. Like, obviously he was a big boy at that age. He was strong, quick. And yeah, we had some great games, but as I say, I think playing in them derby games back then it was a lot different to what they are today. I think, as I said, the game has changed a lot. Sort of certainly the characters nowadays from back then have sort of changed a lot, and it's more about the technical side and tactical side of things. Whereas I think it's about the costs no matter what. Every player was reading off the same page. He was all 100% committed, and would do anything to basically get a win for the club, for the fans, for each other.
Yeah, look, it's football was a way different game back in the day compared to what it is now. But and like you said, I think the characters we have that like were there back then when you were there. We had Keane, Scholesy, Gary Neville, the likes of all them in the dressing room who, look, when it came to Derby days, they didn't take, like, to not mince my words here, they didn't take any shit. And look, regardless of how bad City were, let's say, back then, they'd always be up for it. And it's mad you say Mika Richards was your toughest opponent. Was how many times did you roast him?
We had some good battles. I think obviously at that age as well, I sort of I'd filled out quite early as well, and sort of my main strength really was my pace. So it was a good little tussle. I did get the better of him because I used to score quite often against City, and we used to always win. Personal battles, I sort of used to get the better of him more times than not because we just had a really good team. Like, the players we had in my team and obviously at the club in all age groups really was quality. And as I say, it was a different game back then. It was, it was drilled into us right from the start, in the youth team academy all the way up to the first team that, you're playing for Manchester United, you're representing the club every time you step over the white line away from the club. He was always, had good habits. And I think one thing I just wanted to touch on, which just sort of I was thinking about, obviously, as I was saying, the times have changed. I think nowadays, because a lot of the younger kids and, some of the even, youth team players are getting so much so early, you don't get the fundamentals of what, is being part of the club. Like, I obviously used to have to wash boots a little bit and pump up balls. And, this kind of thing nowadays wouldn't be allowed because, it'd be frowned upon. But I think that was something that I really valued because it grounds you and it makes you, respect and appreciate that you're in a privileged position to be at the club. And I think that obviously, stood a lot of our players that were at that time and previous, in good stead because they've gone on and appreciated what they had. And when they got into the first team or they was around that first team squad, it was like, a massive buzz and excitement. Whereas I think nowadays, because some of these kids are just getting so much so early, they lose sort of, that little bit of a excitement and appreciation factor of what they've actually, got in front of them.
Phil, if I could just add something to that there. I had Sean Derry on my podcast about a month or so ago. He was Crystal Palace Academy Director. Sean's a good friend of mine. And we were talking about this very situation about young kids today having these false environments created for them where, it wasn't just about making you a better player, it was about making you a better person. So that if you didn't make it, the values that you learned in your apprenticeship, you could take them into everyday life and you could apply them. Where kids today, these kids in these academies today, are being taken on luxury coaches, luxury flights, everything is done for them, everything is pushed in. And so they develop technically, but are they developing mentally? Are they developing in other ways that you need to? Especially one of the things that is different today is social media. And of course, if you look at what Giggsy was doing and Sharpie was doing, they were partying. They were doing a lot of stuff that the young kids are doing today. I mean, Ferguson tells this famous story about them going to a house, kicking the door with all the girls and everything. Today, if that was put on social media, young players would get absolutely ruined for that. So there's pros and cons, but I think like these kids that stardom comes so quickly partly because of social media that, if you look at the development of players at United over the last 10 years, how many players have come out of the academy or really, really talented that have developed and fulfilled their potential? Maybe Marcus Rashford, and I can't think of many others. So, people don't realize, first of all, how difficult it is to make that step up anyway. The level is massive. But I do think that's also a factor. Like, City have got really good academy kids, but get them in their first team is a whole different thing.
Sense. Definitely agree totally with that, Phil. And as you say, it's not just about your development as a player. I think, doing that stuff develops you as a person, which is just as important because, a lot of the players aren't going to make it into the first team at Manchester United. And, if you can walk away from the club and, have developed as a person, then, that's still something that you can go away and take into your next chapter, if you like.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. And look, I think there's a lot of things that are missing in football now. I think the education coming up through the club and like learn about the history and tradition that doesn't happen much anymore. These players don't respect that as much. And like you said, I think they've been spoon fed a lot. And the social media age has definitely ruined a lot of players. And we've seen obviously off the pitch incidents with a lot of younger players that's happened. And I think that comes down to lack of discipline, lack of education. And look, it's something that this day and age we're seeing a lot now. But Phil, I want to come to you just obviously on this game tomorrow. There's a huge onus on this, and you mentioned it a while ago. And obviously, there's a lot of pressure on Manchester City to go on do the treble, despite their financial charges. Do you think, though, obviously, we're going for a domestic double, but do you think protecting our history is just as important, considering, with what all we've done in that time? Do you think that's nearly just as important as doing that double?
I think it's definitely up there. I think when you look at City, there's a certain inevitability that they're going to win the European Cup eventually. When you have that type of money, it's hard to keep getting it wrong. So I would swap City winning the European Cup if it meant United win the FA Cup, because City's success has never really bothered me that much. This one would, though. This one definitely would. Partly because when City have been winning things, they haven't been taking it from United. When they won the league in 2012, it bothered me because obviously they took it from United. But most of the last, 4 wins, I barely registered with me. Because to me, it's like outside of their fans, no one really cares. This one would bother me. For the reasons that I just stated. It's a one-off game. Obviously, both teams have enormous incentive. City have the incentive of winning the treble. They'd love to do it against United, right? I mean, they'd love to beat United to win the double. And then go on, I think they'll beat Inter Milan no matter what happens. But they haven't won any of the last 2 games. I do think that's a mistake. They drew against Brighton. They lost away to Brentford. And then you're coming into an FA Cup. Guardiola's already said he won't start Ederson. He's going to start Ortega. And I remember United losing the FA Cup to Chelsea. The game before that, they played West Ham. West Ham won at Old Trafford to stay up. United had picked a weakened team. And I almost think one had a consequence, to the other. And I think if Guardiola had those 2 games back, he might not have done what he did. I understand him resting certain players. But that would mean some of those players haven't played in a couple of weeks. You don't want to go out onto Wembley not having played in a couple of weeks in baking hot heat, where United are the team that has nothing to lose. I mean, United are expected to lose. They probably have about a 30% chance of winning that game. I can't imagine there'd be many things that would satisfy me more than United win, because of obviously the fact it would stop City winning the treble. And it would be a truly unbelievable season to win 2 domestic trophies. So my confidence has grown slightly since this game was announced. And I think if you look at the last couple of weeks, big game players come up in big moments. It's no surprise to me that Casemiro scored against Bournemouth away, scored against Chelsea at home. A true winner. Right when you need someone to come up big, and great players show up in big games when you really need them. And United finally have some big game players in that team that will show up. I'm disappointed Anthony's not there. If you watch City against Bayern Munich, the one thing Bayern Munich really lacked was a central striker. I would have liked to have seen Rashford play down the middle. He's done that a few times this season. He's played very well down there. I mean, it's a game that United have certainly got a really good chance of winning. City are the favourite, obviously, but I'm not dreading it the way I was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I think that the form in the last couple of weeks has given us definitely more positivity for it. And like you said, I think City having them 2 weeks off could stand to something. We don't know. Like, look, every game of football is different, and teams approach things different ways. Whereas as a match scorer, obviously there's been a lot of there's been a lot of movement towards the ownership, and obviously the rat himself, Avi is turning up tomorrow. Like, when you see this type of shit, like, he's never there all year round, and then like the protest's been there. It's been radio silence, and then this takeover is dragging on, like soaps. Like, honestly, like, as a match goer, how like distasteful, how like annoyed does that make you feel when you see this man who doesn't turn up, at all season, and then just turns up because we're in a cup final?
Yeah, it's infuriating because obviously, the last 17 years there's been nothing. They've turned up for games here and there over the years. Obviously, they're going to turn up for cup finals. Turned up for Newcastle, the Women's Cup final again tomorrow. I'm a superstitious person, so I'd rather him be there tomorrow because the last time he won a trophy at Wembley, he was there. So I'm quite superstitious. I like routine if things are going well. So I'd rather him be there than not tomorrow. But one thing I can assure you of is Wembley is going to be probably about 75-80% red tomorrow. You've only got to look at the semi-final that Manchester City played when the stadium was half full. They returned around 18,000 tickets back to the club. It's, for me, you're going to have obviously the main section, which is going to be red, but there's going to be reds all around the stadium tomorrow, and I have no doubt that they're going to, give him some stick, and some well-deserved stick as well, in my opinion, because obviously he's not just the 17 years, but in the past few months, it feels like a complete head fuck, this whole situation, excuse my language.
Oh, work away.
Yeah. So I really hope the 58 and fellow United fans give him the beans tomorrow. I think Wembley's going to be absolutely rocking anyway tomorrow, atmosphere-wise. And I think, to be honest with you, that'll bowl more in our favour personally. So yeah, but it's the audacity for me. Fair enough. Obviously, I don't know if there's a new owner or not at the moment. I don't think anything is agreed with anyone. But it's just, I just hate him. I hate the family. I hate him. I can't go too deep, Keane, because I'll probably get suspended. But
yeah, I don't want that. To be fair, YouTube sent me a strike months ago about intro music on my intro video. So look, don't worry. You saying you hate the Glazers, I don't think will antagonize YouTube too much. Well, I hope not, because it'll be grand anyway. I'll take the hit anyway. But yeah, look, it's annoying. Like, it's really, really annoying to see him turn up, and like you said, the audacity of him to do it. But look, hopefully, like you said, that there's a bit of movement, and hopefully they're gone. Whether you want Ratcliffe or whether you want Qatar, at the end of the day, we need someone in. You know what I mean? Anyone to come in and take over from him, and it can't be worse than the Glazers. Like, it can't. I don't think it can. Like, it can be worse than what they've done. So, but hopefully tomorrow's the last day we see him at United game, and the next game next season, we see new owners. That's ultimately what we want at the end of the day. I think that us getting new ownership would, I'd say we'd have just as much as big celebration in Deansgate after we win the FA Cup if we get new owners. So, it'd be a good. Either way, yeah. I'm booking my flight over, and I'm coming over partying. But what we'll do is now we'll move on to tomorrow's game in terms of predictions, in terms of starting 11 and score predictions. I'm going to come to you, Phil Marsh, first. Give me your goalkeeper and back four.
I think he'll obviously start with De Gea in net. I'd love to see Wan-Bissaka. I think Wan-Bissaka's got to play tomorrow. I think he's 1v1 defending will be crucial tomorrow. So I think he would definitely get the nod ahead of Dalot at right back. I think Lindelof's been fantastic in the last couple of weeks at the side of Varane. I think Lindelof, obviously, over the past few years, we've seen indifferent performances, but I think when he's got somebody at the side of him who's quite assured, and obviously when he's played alongside Varane or Martinez, we've seen a different player. So I think them two at the back tomorrow, and obviously Luke Shaw left back.
Perfect. That's the exact goalkeeper and back four I have as well. Look, to be fair, ideally, personally, everyone knows I'd love a new goalkeeper. But look, he's in a cup final. Hopefully, he can Joe. I suppose go back in the years and hopefully we see 2018 here. I'd love to see a few big saves out of him tomorrow. Wes, I want to get your midfield 4 or midfield 3, and what are you thinking for midfield tomorrow?
Midfield, I think I'd probably go with Casemiro and Fred sitting a bit deeper. And then the 3 attacking midfielders in front that I would go with Bruno, your Casemiro, and Sancho. That's what I would go with tomorrow, personally. I think Fred will have an important role to play tomorrow. Given the heat that's probably going to be about as well. I think Fred's energy. I don't think Fred is he gets a lot of stick. Obviously, he's not the most technically gifted footballer at the club. But Fred can.
Did I see that pass last weekend, though?
I was just about to say Fred can produce little bits of magic. The assist for Bruno was a fantastic pass, great vision, and he can produce that little bit of magic. And whether we like it or not, Fred can pop up with an important goal. So, he's someone that gets himself in great positions. But that's the 5 for me. I would go with 2 holding and 3 attacking midfielders, same shape as City at home.
Yeah, so kind of same kind of setup now. Obviously, Bruno kind of coming in a bit more narrow. Phil, so he's obviously gone with kind of almost 5 midfield, kind of 4-5-1. If you have to pick a front 3, let's say, Phil, what are you picking tomorrow?
Just before I say that, Joel and Avram couldn't show up for the Munich Memorial service, but they could show up for 2 cup finals. Whenever one, they parsimoniously underfunded the women. They've got and showing up for the FA Cup final, they've got a neck on them like a jockey's bollocks. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. If you look at the League Cup final, United had 38% possession, and they played Weghorst down the middle. I think it'll be similar to this. I think they'll play Sancho, Rashford, and Weghorst down the middle. So I think with up front he doesn't have a lot of choices. With Garnacho is someone that gives him an option to change the game if he starts him on the bench. If he starts him, I don't think he has tremendous options to change the game from the bench. So I think Garnacho, especially in the heat, last 20 minutes, he has someone that changes the game running at you. So I think the front 3 will be Sancho, Rashford, and Weghorst, and I think it will be a similar situation with they did against Newcastle, where they'll let City have the ball in front of them. They'll probably not play a pressing high line. They'll probably sit a bit deeper and try to hit them on the counter attack. I remember Spurs beating City at the Etihad, and one of the things that Conte did really, really well, because City are very good when you break at fouling you in non-areas of the field where they don't get booked and then interrupting your rhythm. But they got the ball up to Harry Keane really, really quickly. Where they won the ball in defence, pinged it up to him long before they could press them and before they could foul them and nothing areas of the pitch. I could see Ten Hag doing something like that, where Rashford down the channels. Sancho doesn't have lightning pace, but I don't think he has too many other choices.
I think one thing Sancho has shown though in the last couple of games, he's regaining that confidence we had at Dortmund.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up there. So hopefully, look at the fact is
just like Phil was saying about Lindelof playing with better players. Once Sancho gets a better striker to play off, assists will grow his confidence. He was playing with Holland at Borussia Dortmund. He was playing with top strikers. Playing with some of the best strikers in the world at Borussia Dortmund. Once he gets that at United, then I think we'll see a much better player. I think, assists are a tale of 2 stories. It's also a tale of how you finish. And so it's not fair to judge wingers on assists when you don't have a top striker. But yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I agree. I think once he gets a top striker, we'll see a better Sancho.
Yeah, look, especially a striker we can link up with. I'd love him. It's a pipe dream where we had Harry Kane up there and a player to link up and player to play off. Look, I think we'd see a great Jadon Sancho as well. I think even if you look at even Rashford and Antony as well, for example, if we had a focal point up there who was good, consistent, who was direct, who can hold up the ball, who can do a bit of everything, I think that them players, their output as well would increase as well. So look, hopefully, touch wood, we get a new striker. I know Mason Mount's been floating around. Look, we've been linked with about 46 players, and so he's 2nd of June. So look, at the end of the day, there's the transfer market is going to be mental this summer. So the lads have given all different sections of the team. So Phil gave the defence, Wes gave midfield, Phil Brown gave the up-front options. So lads, I'm going to come to you all. I know I don't want to put you in a position, but I'm come to you all at your score predictions for tomorrow. You can go head, heart, mad, Paddy Power bets. You can do whatever you want here. So I'm going to come to you first, Mr. Marsh. Give me your score prediction for tomorrow's game.
I'm going to go for 2-1. I think we'll struggle to probably keep City, without scoring for the full 90 minutes. But I've just got a funny feeling that tomorrow's going to be a good day for us, and I'm going to say 2-1 win. Whether that's in extra time or in 90 minutes, I think we'll get the job done before the penalties.
So Phil's going 2-1 and maybe in extra time. Wes, are you feeling the same?
2-1. Yeah, 2-1, I think, inside 90 minutes.
2-1 inside 90 minutes. And Phil Brown, are we going to go for a full round of 2-1s here?
Do you know what I would love? A 2-1 tomorrow with 2 goals in the 90th minute, like the new comp in 89. And just to remind them, City of how treble is done. I have a feeling United will win this tomorrow, and I have a feeling it'll be late drama. And that's what I was going with, 2-1. I can't let my mind go anywhere else where City will win this game. I have a feeling
both penalties as well.
Oh, man. The perfect scenario would be Biggs Weghorst at the back post from a corner, so 92nd minute. Just to see Guardiola with his hands in his head and to see United win that trophy. Man, I would do more gear than an East German weightlifter if that happened. No, seriously, I would love that.
It's like when he came on. It's like when he was warming up the Brighton game in extra time, and we were all singing the Weghorst scores were on the pitch.
Would love it, man. Would love it
in the semi. I done a preview here with a Man City journalist the other day, and I went 2-1 with a Garnacho winner off the bench.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stick to that prediction. Go 2-1 United with Garnacho off the bench to score the winner. That'd be great. A couple of comments in there as well. Richard going 3-2 United in 90 minutes. He's saying Weghorst winner. Swear to God, if Weghorst scores the winner tomorrow,
I love it.
I'll go live on a channel. I'll go drinking online. We'll just have the crack online. I might get banned off YouTube, but it'll be.
If Weghorst scores the winner, I'll get him tattooed on me.
This is live. So if there's anyone in the comments, screen record that shit. I'm not letting Wes get away with that. If Weghorst scores the winner, we will get a Weghorst tattoo on Wes. But thanks very much to the 3 lads for coming on. It's been a fantastic show, great discussion points, and look, I do always appreciate their company. Look, most importantly, let's hope we go out and win that trophy tomorrow, because I think, look, it'd be a great way to cap off a good season, and hopefully it brings more positive times ahead. Hopefully with them absolute Joe Leach's leaving. But on that, this is Phil, this is Wes.
Cheers, lads. Have a good weekend.
We're out here.